Hello and welcome to another AIC video. What I have here today is actually something I wasn't expecting to do a review on at all. It wasn't something that was in my list of things I've been looking to take a look at. It is an Asus Tuf Gaming FX505 DT. My son actually received this from a friend of his. So his friend bought himself a new gaming laptop because he was having issues with this one. It was randomly shutting off. The drive on it was bit locked. It had, like I said, a few different issues. And so he spent his money, bought himself a new one, and gave this one to my son. So my son came to me, and over the last week and a half or so, we've been slowly going through and fixing it up and learning some stuff. My son has his own job, so he hasn't had complete free time to do it. So it's taken a little while, but we took it apart and we cleaned the thermal paste, repasted. The fans were completely clogged. Like there was no airflow coming out of those fans. And so it kind of gave my son a chance to really fix his first computer and refurbish it. He doesn't have a gaming laptop. He has a desktop that he built with his own money. And it's pretty low spec because, he just turned 16 about a month and a half ago. So he hasn't had a whole lot of money to spend on computers. So he's pretty excited to throw some of his more modern games on here and test it out. But I wanted to share my thoughts on this system. If you're looking at one of these, I have no idea what they go for. Obviously, typically not free, but I did have to put some money into it in that, or I'm going to have to add some RAM to it. It only has 8 gigs of RAM, which is pretty low. It has a 256 gig SSD for the OS drive. I did put a 500 gig hard drive in here. So I think upping the RAM will improve performance and usability quite a bit for this system. That being said, as far as the actual machine goes, the screen, a bit on the dim side. It is at its full brightness here. So brightness is up all the way. It's kind of a dim screen. It is a 1920 by 1080. I don't believe it's a high refresh rate screen from what I could tell on this machine. It doesn't have the stickers that tell me what the specs are, and finding specific specs for this one haven't been the easiest. I don't know what software I need to be able to change the color of the RGB on the keyboard, but it is a backlit keyboard. The hinge feels mediocre. There's a little bit of play in it, but it does go into places, but you can see the screen does wobble a little bit when it's on the table. Overall build quality is a plastic shell all the way around, but it actually feels pretty good compared to the Acer that I reviewed previously. The build quality on this actually feels a little bit nicer just because the panels seem to fit together a bit better than the aluminum panels on the other machine. The keyboard on here is actually a pretty decent experience. Definitely nothing I can complain at for sure. It feels good, travels pretty good, pretty consistent keys. It's no ThinkPad keyboard, but for a kid's gaming computer, definitely no complaints from me. One thing about this machine is if we take a look here on the front, there are no ports on the front. On the right, there are no ports. On the back, there are no ports. You are limited to only ports on the left side of the machine, and it's pretty limited. We have our Ethernet, HDMI, and 3 USB ports. We have no SD card reader on here. We have no USB-C, though I think this does predate laptops coming with USB-C by a bit, generation or two. But yeah, so you're missing out on some features. Trackpad is a bit small, but probably pretty typical for when this came out. Overall, pretty decent machine. As far as the specs of this specific one goes, all right, so for the CPU, we have an AMD Ryzen 5 3550H. For the GPU, we have, of course, the integrated Radeon graphics, but we also have an NVIDIA GTX 1650 with 4 gigs of video RAM. We do have, like I said, just 8 gigs of system RAM, so 2 4-gig DIMMs. And we did add it has a 256 gig SSD, and then I just grabbed a 500 gig hard drive I had laying around. That's actually an old Apple drive, which I didn't even realize that, but I figure it's not going to do me any good, so the boy can use it to install some games on here that he wants to play. So let's go ahead and run a quick benchmark and run one game. And if you have any questions about it, feel free to ask, and I'll do my best to answer those questions.